recently convicted, still on the outside, and sort of having the next, 3, 4, 5, 6 months with this load on your back, trying to think of what are you going to say at the mitigation hearing or the sentencing hearing? What are your plans? Are you going to go to prison? Are you going to appeal? All those things that sort of you must be thinking about right now. And so that's a big cup of coffee.
That's tea.
But anyways,
so just to clarify, I haven't been convicted yet. I was found guilty.
Right.
A conviction is registered after sentencing, and there's a very good likelihood that I won't be convicted, although this judge has been a wild card throughout the whole trial. Katie, my lawyer, she thought that a lot of her decisions were, out there, not in line with what the jurisprudence says. So I'm bringing 3 applications, most likely at least 3 applications, before the sentencing. Our next date is on March 9th. It's a case conference. And we're going to be discussing, one of the last things that the judge said after the jury delivered was, Mr. Nassr, I expect that you're going to be bringing an abuse of process application. Because she already had kind of forewarning about this in the trial. She didn't allow me to bring it during the trial, although the case law is quite clear that you're supposed to bring it before the jury delivers their verdict. So she said, oh, no, you can bring it after the verdict. So that's an appealable issue right there. But there are many appealable issues that I think likely would go upwards to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, I don't know if there's a national issue here. I'm sure there is. But I know that the Court of Appeal doesn't like me very much.
Are you the vexatious litigant that I read about?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, fuck. That's quite a label.
Yeah. My ex-wife and I fought in family court for 7 years.
Right.
And that was one of the tools they used to try and suppress me. I was basically fighting for custody of my daughter. She wouldn't have it. And then in 2011, I was charged with sexual assault. And that was like, they're breaking the case. And then when those charges were dropped against me, they needed something else. And they relied on vexatious litigant status to try and stop me from doing anything else. And I mean,
I'm just curious, and this isn't relative to a documentary, but I mean, I'm interested in the legal process. I'm actually quite impressed that you represented yourself at the Supreme Court of Canada. That must have been quite a day. But the vexatious litigant, is there a list in Canada, and does that prevent you from ever doing anything again?
Well, so I didn't represent myself. I just made the application, and my application for leave was dismissed. So I didn't actually get to appear before the court.
Oh, so they decided we don't even want to hear it.
Correct.
Got it.
So they get 800 applications a year, and maybe 80 continue on. So, so I don't know that I'm sure that there is a list. I know that I'm flagged in the Superior Court. If I were to try and do anything right now, there's a warning that comes up about me when trying to file materials. I've been told this by many court clerks.
Well, what about? I thought. I mean, I did a bunch of googling on you on the weekend, and I was curious about where you're coming from, and so I came across the Supreme Court thing, and then I came across the $5 million lawsuit against the Windsor Police, which I understand why you did that. It seems like the lawsuit against the police came after you were declared vexatious. Is that timing's right on that?
So the original vexatious order came in 2009, 2010-ish.
Right.
And it was basically on a family court motion. So on a family court motion is not proper process for a vexatious litigant order to stand. Basically, a motion is a temporary step in a legal process. And it's not supposed to be anything binding beyond the actual litigation itself. But then they separately brought a vexatious litigant application against me. And it was in front of basically the same judges. And the Windsor judges there don't like me. So anyways, getting a vexatious litigant status slapped against someone basically means that you need to prove to the court that there are reasonable grounds to proceed with an application or an action. And my lawyers, at the time that we sued the Windsor Police, they didn't even attempt to get this permission. So you have to essentially get permission. You have to bring a separate application to get permission to bring another lawsuit. And that threshold, that evidentiary burden, is reasonable grounds, the same grounds that police need to arrest someone. So reasonable grounds needs to be given, or permission needs to be given before I can bring anything. And then my lawyers, they didn't even ask for permission, and they just filed the Windsor Police lawsuit without even getting that permission. I don't even think that even ever became a question for them. But just because I was by virtue of being represented, I think that my name wouldn't have been flagged as preventing them from filing anything.
I see that. Okay. Now that makes sense to me. All right. So, hey, did you get a chance to see Prey on the weekend?
I did, yes.
Any thoughts?
It looked like about 20 days of principal photography. It looks like the story's cut short. Maybe did that for a film festival. But the Supreme Court decision isn't included at the end.
Let me see. Did we not include the Supreme Court decision in the end?
It just talks about the Court of Appeal upholding.
Oh, right. So the Ontario Court of Appeal upheld, and then the church came back. You probably read about the church came back and tried to bring that appeal to the Supreme Court, and they didn't even hear it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think emotionally, you're right. Legally, for all the legal scholars in the room, that would have been an important fact. But I think the audience, was, when the appeal was denied, it just felt good for the audience, I think, and so that's why we cut it short.
Sure.
I think that's why we cut it short. And maybe, but you're right. There was a film festival happening, and we needed it premiered at Hot Docs in Toronto, and it was on the 1 year anniversary. And the Supreme Court, you know how long that takes.
Yeah.
So you're right. I didn't include it, and it was partly creative, but also partly just I didn't want to wait around for another 6 months or a year before the Supreme Court had their crack at it.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was enjoyable. I thought it was really interesting. I didn't know that any lawyers actually did mock trials before an actual trial. Like, that was kind of news to me. And I've been around the legal business for a while. I mean, that seems like a very costly endeavor, but I mean, they were obviously going after a lot of money. Um, I thought your storytelling was fair and balanced. I thought it was really interesting. I didn't know the motivation of why the priest was actually, why they actually gave comment, but I thought that kind of spoke to you as a filmmaker, which is a really good thing. So, I think that, I appreciate the journalistic integrity that it appears that you have.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, the priest gave comment because I think he gave comment because he's got a fucking shitty job. He's the bag man for the Catholic Church. He's been doing it for 20 years. He's never abused a kid, but he's got to be the face of all these fucking priests who've abused kids over decades and decades and decades. And I think he wanted to have a say. I think he's and I said to him, I said, Father Katulski, this is before we talked. I said, like, I'm sure you, when you entered the seminary in 1966 or whatever year he entered, he had no idea this was going to be his thing, but here he is stuck with what I would describe as one of the most horrible jobs in the Catholic Church, most likely.
Wow.
Hey, are you Catholic?
No.
No,
I'm actually atheist.
Atheist, yeah, me too. But I was raised Roman Catholic.
Mm.
I was trying to figure out.
I did go to Catholic schools when I was younger.
Yeah.
I actually grew up in the Windsor area, and I went to Brennan, and
my dad taught at Brennan for 25 years.
Wow.
You're younger than me. I think you're about a decade younger. I'm 54. How old are you?
42.
Yeah, so he would have been at Assumption by that time. But my dad was the football coach. He taught phys ed. He taught geography. And there's actually at Brennan there's a hallway. There's the Maury Gallagher hallway named after him. But
wow.
I know Brennan very well, and I actually grew up not far from Brennan. But I actually I didn't want to go to the school my dad taught at, so I went to Riverside.
Probably in grade 8, like confirmation time, it started to feel like very natural and it started to feel very fake and pretentious and something that just didn't have any like logic to it.
Yeah, like,
and that was around the time. Yeah, that was around the same time that I kind of said, "Oh, like I don't think I believe this."
Yeah. No, me as well. And I remember confirmation specifically thinking, you're in grade 8 and you're with all your grade 8 buddies in their grade 8 class, and the priest talking about confirmation, and you're supposed to confirm that you actually agree with your baptism and you agree with and I'm thinking, what other life big altering decision do they give to grade 8 kids? Nothing. You can't vote, you can't drive a car, but they're going to ask you what you want to believe in for the rest of your life. So yeah, I think it's total bullshit. But anyways, we digress.
Yeah.
So you're Brennan High School. So was Father Zakur the principal when you were there? He's a bazillion. No. He
was gone.
Yeah.
I heard his name around school, but I don't think maybe I met him because I played baseball. I think he was involved with baseball a little bit.
Oh yeah. But anyways,
so I have a legal background, so that's part of the reason why I didn't have too much difficulty going up to the Supreme Court. I studied for a year and a half paralegal. And if you don't know, here in Ontario, a paralegal can essentially give legal advice and represent people, and just in a different jurisdiction. So, like small claims court, summary criminal matters, whatnot. But even at that point, I kind of already knew more than the teachers could ever teach me. After every class, all my students would come up to, all the students would basically ask me about the lesson that we had just learned. And I never intended to graduate or even become licensed as a paralegal. I was just taking the program to kind of reinforce what I actually knew about the legal system. And from the 7 or 8 years that I was involved in the litigation for family court and the criminal stuff that came about, I knew a fair bit. I represented myself pretty much exclusively for that time that I was in family court, and I made a lot of mistakes, and that's where I learned a lot about the legal system, was by making a lot of mistakes. Then eventually I started volunteering with a nonprofit called, and they we do coaching. We basically teach self-represented litigants on how to represent themselves better, and that's something that I'm very passionate about. The legal system, even though it has failed me on a number of occasions, it has been something that I have deep respect for. My growing up, my uncle is Patrick Ducharme. He's sort of
I know Ducharme.
Yeah, so he's my dad's uncle. I call him my uncle, but
Right.
he's basically, whenever we heard anything, legally speaking, in the household growing up, it was in regards to Pat doing something, remarkable or whatever. So I had a great deal of respect for the legal system, and I guess I still do. I just know that there's a lot of shitty judges and there's a lot of shitty lawyers, and yeah, I don't blame the jury. The jury the jury weren't supposed to hear anything about death or suicide. In fact, the judge gave 2 orders. At the beginning of the trial, it was made that the jury wouldn't hear anything about suicide. And then, right after my lawyer left, the Crown attorney basically is trying to question me on a line of questioning under cross-examination, and then he starts going into talking about my lawyer aunt. So I have an aunt that's a lawyer as well, and she's from London, and she had advised me about Creeper Hunter on a number of occasions. And here the frickin' Crown attorney, who knows exactly what she's going to talk about, because she had given a police statement a day before. All her police statement was about was this dead child predator from who I had an interaction with in 2015, and then in 2019 he became deceased. So my aunt blames me for this person's death. And that's all she talked about to the police. And knowing this, here's Spangenberg questioning me about my aunt, who basically was giving me legal advice, So now I'm objecting to to solicitor-client privilege, and I'm also fearing that the reason he's doing this is because he's going to try and set up her talking about, because the Crown's case at this point is done. They have given all their evidence. I'm now watching him trying to set up bringing her in as a reply witness. So he wants to bring my lawyer aunt in, who gave me legal advice. And I'm fearing that she's going to be talking about suicide. And I know that she's reckless, and she would. And then suddenly we excuse the jury. We have this discussion, the objections about suicide. Judge says, oh, no. We're not hearing anything about suicide. That goes for anybody. We're not hearing suicide at all. Next day, the Crown opens this door to a previous order, which was about bad behavior. So in the criminal justice system, you're not allowed to have what's referred to as extrinsic misconduct or similar fact evidence. So, for instance, if someone assaults somebody in 2010, just because they assaulted someone in 2010 doesn't mean that evidence is relevant for an assault that happens in 2020.
Got it.
We had decided this issue. The Crown then reopens the issue mid-trial and now wants to start talking about this similar fact evidence. Similar fact evidence, which is essentially not even proven that it's me, but essentially the confrontations. All the confrontations were excluded from being shown to the jury. And it was thought that, oh, you see Mr. Nassr, harassing people, quote unquote, harassing people, 20 times over here, does that mean he harassed Mr. The deceased person who's the center of the extortion and the harassment charge? So the thinking was, and the judge was right, that the similar fact evidence should be excluded. So the Crown applies to reopen that. He was successful. I didn't have a lawyer to properly prepare arguments. He's successful. And then he puts a video to me. This video is about a deceased person from Iowa. He's on the Creeper Hunter website. His name is Randy Cooper.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Randy Cooper, sometime after the confrontation, shoots himself in the head. They play a video, and the last 5 seconds of the video is a title that says, Randy Cooper pointed a gun at his face and killed himself. And the jury saw it. And the judge wasn't even looking. The judge was making notes and stuff, but she wasn't looking at the screen. She didn't see. I excused the jury. Sure enough, I saw the lead investigator, Inspector Johnson, an inspector with the London Police, has been paid $5,000 to $10,000 a week to sit in her uniform in the gallery and watch the entire trial. She puts her hands over her face. She thinks the fucking trial is over.
Yeah.
Like, suicide just the day before was not supposed to be mentioned. And the judge was like, we don't need to address it. She didn't even make a charge to the jury saying to disregard it. She's like,
What was when you saw that on the screen, did you look over at the jury? What was their reaction?
I thought it was an automatic mistrial. Like, there's the fucking Crown. I thought this is like, some of the jurors were disgusted, and I could see that they thought it was reprehensible. It was very hard to read the jury, though, especially while I was under cross-examination. But the Crown's position on this was, I didn't watch the whole video. Like, they've produced at this point, I want to say at least 3,000 pages of disclosure. What they were referring to as 3 terabytes of data pulled from computers. You know, they knew exactly what they were doing. And he says, oh, well, I didn't watch it. Like, here's a fucking 20-year veteran of the Crown's office basically making this kind of a mistake. And the judge was like, oh, that's okay. We'll just, I have the recording. I have all the recordings. I got an order to record the entire trial. And
Really?
I thought that this was going to be an automatic mistrial. I was like, wow.
Wait. You were able to record
Yeah.
audio or video?
Audio. I actually was going to make a request for video and to have it actually broadcast.
Because I don't think I've ever heard of that being allowed.
It hasn't been allowed in many cases.
I mean, not in Ontario. I think in Saskatchewan or Alberta that was possible. But so the judge knew that you had your iPhone or whatever, DAT machine or whatever you had recording, and you got the whole trial.
Yep.
That's interesting.
So
can I listen to it at some point?
I'm not allowed to distribute it.
Okay.
I can listen to it.
Got it.
That's part of the order. So the authority.
Could I film you listening to it?
Now that I don't believe, because I think I would have to look at her order.
Yeah.
Because.
Anyways, that's a whole other conversation.
It would be an argument that would be made that it would need to be in the public interest, and you were relying on Section 2. I don't think anything would come of it from me, because I don't think I would necessarily allow that. But if you were doing it, that would be outside of my control.
Right.
And then you would need to make an argument. I'm sure that the Crown would try and prevent this from being disseminated.
No, I agree. Yeah. We when we do these films, we have to get errors and omissions insurance at the very end, and broadcaster won't give us our final payment until we have E&O insurance, and the lawyer's gone over everything contentious, and so.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a very contentious issue. I'm sure that I could even make remarks and float the idea at the case conference to see what her thoughts are.
Oh, do me a favor. Don't mention me at the case conference. It's better right now if I'm flying under the radar. Once, if I do a documentary, I always prefer to sort of fly under the radar until all the legal avenues have been exhausted, because I know for certain that even though I'm interested in talking to the Crown, I'm interested in talking to the detective, I'm interested in talking to the journalist, I'm interested in talking to possible witnesses. I don't want to be a fly in the ointment for anything that would influence the court. And I know that if the court were to get wind of a documentary before, every legal blah, blah was exhausted, it could put a kibosh on what I'm trying to do. So
I understand.
Yeah. I want to be a fly on the wall, not a fly in the ointment.
Sure. So I've got probably another maybe maximum 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then I have to prepare for my next meeting, which is at 11. So is there anything like pressing that you feel like you want to ask me about, or like, are there specific questions that you want to kind of,
would you be open to the idea at some point of doing a sit down with me with a camera?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a story that needs to be told here. I don't think you have enough time in a 2-hour movie to tell it. Which kind of brings me hesitation. because this is so dense.
Yeah.
Like, what story gets told is my fear.
Right. I mean, yeah, you're right. I have so many questions. I could probably talk for hours with you, but I'm curious why you started all this. Why did it? Are you happy with how it's developed? Are you, do you have regrets about it? All these sort of things. Like I don't even know, and I haven't even. I'm just from what I've been able to Google research on the weekend. I still don't know why you even started this whole thing. Like in 2015, like what was the sort of moment that you said I need to do this?
So there's a video that exists. I'm not sure where. I think on like a couple news agencies' websites.
Oh yeah.
Of me in London at Masonville Mall. I saw a guy filming up a young girl's skirt.
I saw that. I saw that video.
So that was kind of the crucial moment in the development of Creeper Hunter. I posted that video not with any intent to bring legal repercussions on this person, but just to kind of like point this out in society, that this kind of thing was happening, that that this was, probably something that was like much bigger than what it is that I had seen. But the audience, like that video, when I posted that video, it went, 1,000,000 views in a couple days.
Wow.
And the audience was really crucial in like giving feedback and, trying to push me to do this more. Cause they were really telling me, oh, you're really good at this. Like the confrontation that happens. Like if you were to see, an accident happening, most people might pull out their camera and observe and kind of be like an observer. For most of my life, I've kind of taken the opposite position. I have so many videos. Most of them are private right now. I have so many videos of me capturing like really bad things in society happening. Like just the other day, I'm driving and I drove by a garbage dumpster, and it's the middle of the night, and there's this person throwing full paint cans in a garbage dumpster. And I was just livid. I pulled out my camera and I narrated what was happening. This is not public or anything, but like I was just filming it to kind of document it and to hopefully stop this person from ever doing this again. Because, I care deeply about the environment. Like I'm, very much a junior environmentalist. I feel very deeply about, a lot of different issues. And the Creeper Hunter thing came about as a result of me kind of being exposed to that kind of issue firsthand. With that guy at the mall. And then the audience really kind of pushed me. And then from a journalist perspective, I said, this is something I need to explore further. At that point, I had produced a short documentary and then a feature-length documentary. The feature-length documentary was about David Rock from London. David Rock is this notorious figure.
I know a bit about that story. Where? Hey, can I see your documentary somewhere?
All of them outside of my or inside my control have been privated, so I can send you what it is that I have.
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to see it. Yeah.
I'm almost positive because the last version that I had published was the commentary version, which I thought was important to put out.
Right.
That story in itself is like a huge controversy in itself. That was one of the reasons why I started using a stage name. And generally the realm of that content was something that I was very unfamiliar with at that time. But I also kind of learned a lot about sexual abuse and about well, it was also something that I was struggling with as well, because I was dealing with parental issues. And then, ironically, later on, when I'm charged with sexual assault, even though I had finished that documentary, I was like kind of feeling like this is fucking Rock's way of trying to fucking get back at me. Like, I didn't actually think that, but it was like, Rock thought that I had crossed him in some bad way. And the audience, they were kind of torn as to like what it is that my story was actually about. Like, at the end, my question to the audience is like, should a person who's been convicted serve their time 20 years prior to, for sex crimes against his own children, should he have access to his children? And like, at the time that I'm posing this question, it's kind of like stupid to ask the question, because most of his children are adults and they're actually choosing to spend time with him. So it's like,
Yeah.
I was asking the question more on a broader scale, in like, at what point do we, look differently at offenders in society, which was really the thesis. And I think most people don't get that from watching it. Maybe they do. I don't know.
I've noticed a bit of a shift. I was working at Vice in 2016, and a colleague of mine named Shawnee Cohen directed. It's a predator hunter documentary. So profiling the guy, I forgot his name, from Toronto.
We're actually dealing with Dr. Cantor.
From CAMH.
I don't know if that's where he's located, but
yeah.
He's in that documentary.
Yeah. And I mean, are you seeing a shift at all? Because it feels to me that, like, I got this strange thing of vigilantism. I I'll just briefly, I'll let you peek into my brain, but like, I'm against capital punishment. I'm against the death penalty. However, if someone did something bad to my child, I'd probably take care of it. You know what I'm saying? And so, but so I know that probably a lot of the likes for what you were doing were probably fueled by people who felt the same way as I did back then. Like, fuck those guys, fuck that. But
Justin Payne calls himself a vigilante.
Yeah.
I don't even see him as a vigilante, because I don't know that he, if you look at the definition of vigilante, I don't see him as enforcing any laws. He's going out to shame people. I don't think that I ever took that approach. I completely disagree with the Crown's assertion that I am this vigilante. I did a news article with somebody years ago where I lay out that I'm not a vigilante, and I make arguments for that. But I see how people kind of, think that I may be, and I don't think most people care. I think most people that watch this content, that consume it, they care only about shaming pedophiles. I care more about trying to make widespread societal changes, which is why I, with the momentum of Creeper Hunter, I then co-founded a nonprofit called and now takes up 16 hours of my day. And my greatest fear right now is that I'm not like that what has happened to me may affect them. We have 155 volunteers from 22 countries working to essentially reduce risks for kids and vulnerable people online. And it's not okay that my circumstances may affect and or may shut it down altogether. So, you know, it's this tightrope I've been walking on in the last 2 years, trying to prepare for the trial. And like Katie, she was so confident that, we were going to, any jury, that we would be able to win. She applauded me on a number of times. Oh, I'm so glad you decided to do a jury. I was self-represented for the first 2 years of the case. And I knew, for sure a jury was going to say, what the fuck? Like, why are you even charged? And then to see the tactics of this really pitiful Crown attorney, like, I can show you emails that will fucking blow your mind. And I can actually send those to you because they're not disclosure. But James Spangenberg here is, in my belief, where the story is, because he's the moving force here. It was him that oversaw the search warrant. It was him and the search warrant was for negligence causing death and these other crimes. I was never charged with negligence caused death. They never had grounds for negligence caused death. And Inspector Johnson, goes to a judge and puts in an affidavit that she believes she has grounds for negligence caused death. That's why up until the end of trial, they're still trying to bring in negligence caused death and this issue of suicide. So, I've got to prepare for my next meeting in a couple minutes. Is there anything else? Anything else that you want to wrap up with?
No. This has been a great start. If you're open to it, maybe we can meet face to face next time. I mean, are you?
Sure.
I have no idea. Like, you're not under house arrest or anything right now. Like, you can actually.
No. At the beginning of trial, they offered me house arrest for a year, only on harassing communications, not on the extortion, not on the written child pornography. And I turned that down.
All right. So maybe
I'm on my own. I'm on my own recognizance right now.
Okay. So maybe next time we can meet for a coffee or a lunch. Next time I'm down.
Sure. Or even in London.
London's good too if you find yourself up in London frequently. Yeah.
I do a lot of traveling, so it's up to you. I do believe.
Hey, I was thinking of something. I've seen Patrick Ducharme in action in court. He's an excellent litigator. Why didn't you get him to defend you?
He didn't want to take my case.
He didn't want to take your case?
No.
Wow.
That's a different story.
What? Because it's a family, or just?
He represented me for the sexual assault charge.
Right.
And
you were a lot of work.
I think so. Emotionally,
you probably questioned him a lot.
Emotionally, I think there was like too much tied up there.
Yeah.
But he handed me off. He was basically made an excuse. He handed me off to who is now my good friend Lisa Carnelis, and Lisa, he said, was she's who I would go to if I was fighting this, basically. Like, yeah. I think that he didn't feel like there was enough. Personally, I didn't feel like he didn't think there was enough publicity in it for him. And then on the other hand, when I approached him for help a year and a half ago, I was asking him about basically shooting down extortion. I feel like extortion violates the charter. And he's like, oh, that's 2 years worth of work and blah, blah, blah. And I don't have that. But, I mean, the crux of why I believe that it violates the charter is revolving around what I feel like is a very broad argument and a very applicable argument, which is if you're a battered wife, and this is not my argument, obviously, but if you're a battered wife, you can, and this is just only on the issue of extortion. If you're a battered wife, you can threaten to call the police on someone, on your, spouse. If you don't go get help, I'm going to call the police. Legally speaking, that's extortion. But there's no exception for that in extortion. There is, however, an exception in extortion for if you don't stop doing this, I will sue you. So it is basically the criminal version of the civil exception is what my argument was going to be. And Pat was like, that's going to take 2 years to try and bring down extortion. So I stopped on that argument because of his advice, but I don't think he ever wants to work with me again. I mean, he would rather have me as a nephew.
Yeah.
On another note, I did embarrass his partner. And at the time, it wasn't his partner. It was just some junior lawyer in his office. He was piss poor. He was just piss, can't even stand straight drunk. And so Evan Weber is his partner now. And Evan is walking down the street, and I captured a video of Evan, slurring his words and, piss poor drunk, and then pissing on a building.
Oh, fuck.
And then Pat was not impressed about this. Like, I tried to make an argument about my journalistic rights and how the public ought to know about, if somebody in his office has a drinking problem. And, that didn't fly very well.
Okay. All right. So listen, I'll keep you posted next time, which is frequent. I'm down probably the next week or two, or next time you're in London or Toronto, give me a buzz and maybe we can hook up for lunch or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. All right.
Listen, Jason, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the talk. And it sort of gives me some ideas, and these documentaries. If this becomes a documentary, these things take like a year or two to make, maybe even 3 years. My wife's a producer, and she's just finishing a film that took her 8 years. So sometimes these things take a long time.
I understand that.
All right. Okay. Anyways, have a great day.
Thanks so much. Have a great one.
Bye.